If this is your first time here in 2 Sundays, we are doing a strange thing, okay? We are in a series called Stranger Things. How many of you have seen the show Stranger Things? Raise your hand. Okay, I have not. So this message has nothing to do with that. Just like last week. Some of y'all got excited, but I'm sorry, I disappointed you. We are talking about how God works in strange ways. Now, I'm just curious to see from the person who was here last week, have you seen God work in a strange way this week? Raise your hand. Good, 1 person, 2 people, here we go. That is all I needed, man. We see this, that God works in strange ways. Like, for a lot of us who maybe aren't really like followers of Jesus Christ, they don't know what this church thing is. They don't know, they don't care about God. For a person who's like, man, far from God, I don't really care about him. He's a foreign concept to me. It may be because he may be a little strange to you, and I get it. I get it, man. He really does work in strange ways. And so, this morning, I want just to speak with you for the next few minutes about how God grabs our attention in a strange way. I would love just to ask you this here, right? Currently, take a moment and think, what has your attention? In life, this week, what is consuming your mind? What has your attention? And it may be your full attention, and that attention may bring anxiety, that attention may bring doubt, hurt. Like, what has your attention? Now, this word attention is very valuable. It is a very valuable word, and here is why. Here is the definition, right here. It says the definition is to take notice and regard that thing as interesting and important. To take notice and regard that thing as interesting and important. This is why, thank you, Tiffany. This is why that word is very valuable, because from the definition, that if you give something attention, that thing either is probably interesting or important. Right? But it goes the same for the opposite. If you don't give something attention, then that thing may be not as important as it should be, or interesting. If someone doesn't give attention to something, then that something is not very valuable to them. Now, this is not a blanket statement. I'm just asking you just to assess, right, yourself. If you don't give something attention, that something may be not as valuable as it should be. I believe as humans, this is why we desire attention. Now, I'm going to ask a real honest thing. How many of you in this room want attention? Okay, so thank you, Ryan. So y'all are saying that the people who didn't raise your hand, that y'all don't want any attention at all. Okay, I think this. I find it very interesting, because the people who didn't raise your hand, you think you don't want attention. But if you don't get attention from that right person or thing, then you don't feel valuable. Yeah. So let me ask that question again. How many of you like attention? Raise your hand. We got more hands up this time. There we go. We got more hands up. Yeah, as humans, this is why we desire attention, because we want to know that we are valuable. We want to know that we are interesting and that we are important. Right? This is why we want attention. In fact, a lot of people believe this. A lot of people believe that as a generation goes, like Gen Z, millennials, or as the next generation comes, each generation loses an amount of attention span. We have heard that, right? That like each decade, each group of people, each age group, the attention span gets shorter and shorter. But actually, researchers are saying that that's not exactly the case. It's not exactly the case. That is actually the opposite, that our attention span is very much task dependent. It's not that our attention spans are getting shorter, it's that there is a focus on different tasks. My son, Roman, is 5, right? And so back in the day, I had the shortest attention span ever. But once I found that thing that was interesting and important, I devoted all of my attention to it. The issue with different generations is that is different for each generation. And so we say, hey, your attention span is getting shorter. No, they just don't like what you liked. They're just not interested in what you were interested in. You love just to read. Okay, yeah, well, they don't. Right? You love to play. Well, no, they like being on their iPads. It is task dependent. That is what researchers are saying now. How much attention we apply to a task will vary depending on the task demand. Could it be that new generations are just getting smarter? So their attention spans are shorter because the task doesn't demand as much. That could be the case. That could be the case. Also, researchers says that there's evidence of shorter shot lengths in movies. So we see that in movies, the scenes are getting shorter and shorter. There are faster shots. And it's not because we have shortened our attention span. It is because filmmakers have gotten better at trying to grab our attention. Filmmakers, hear me, have gotten better at grabbing our attention. Maybe the reason why our attention is getting shorter with something is because that something is not as valuable anymore. Here's the thing, we pay attention to our phones all the time, right? Right? And we are made just to feel guilty of that. But this is why, and hopefully this will help you not feel as guilty. This is why you pay attention to your phone a lot. This is why you give attention, right? Because your phone has multiple things on it at once that is of value to you. Not just one thing. Right? Oh yeah, we know. There's text messages, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there is stocks, they are putting everything in apps. So everything that's important is in one place. That is why it has your attention. Because everything interesting and important is in one place. Here's the thing, is that while that some of us have started, and we started out well, of giving something attention that we don't give as much to now. That could be our health, our mental health, our physical health, our spouses, our friends. Man, we started out good. But as human beings, and it's okay, that thing that you spend constant time with is becoming less and less interesting. And this is what is happening in 1 Kings chapter 18. That the people, they knew God, but he became less interesting and less important, to the point that they almost forgot about him. They knew who God was. It was a God that we served and followed, but they just drifted away tremendously. And so last week we spoke about Elijah, this person called Elijah, this weird man who did weird things, like, I don't know, God fed him food from a raven's mouth. That's weird, right? We see God working in a strange way there. Well, we are going to look at a strange way that God could grab our attention this morning. It's funny. It's funny. I feel it funny because we often feel alone in this. We feel like maybe that we lack attention. I know how that feels. You're asking, will somebody pay attention to me? Will somebody give me attention? And it's a lonely feeling, but guess what? God knows exactly how you feel, because he's asking for the same thing from you. He knows exactly how you feel, not because it simply makes him feel good, but it's actually in your best interest that you give God the attention that he deserves. And so let's just dive in. If I may set this up for us, there was a famine in the land. There was a drought. There was no rain for 3 years. 3 years. And that was on purpose. God asked Elijah just to pray that it doesn't rain for 3 years. And he did it. And it has not rained for 3 years. This is where we are in the moment. And so it hasn't rained in 3 years because the people have turned their back on God. They knew him. He was prominent. But they were serving other gods. And one of the gods that they were serving was called Baal. And this is what was called like the sky god, the god of lightning. They were serving this god. And so God sent Elijah and said, hey, no more. I need their attention. I want their attention. So he sent Elijah. And Elijah summoned the king. The king's name was Ahab, okay? This ruler who also turned his back on God, his name was Ahab. And when he summoned him, the king said this. When Ahab saw Elijah, he said, "Is that really you, the troublemaker of Israel?" He was that because the king knew that Elijah had prayed for no rain. Therefore, they had no water. Their crops were dying. Their animals were dying. So he knew that Elijah was this, a troublemaker. And Elijah answered, "I have not made trouble for Israel. You and your father's family caused all the problems when you stopped obeying the Lord's command and began following like false gods, like Baal." And then it says, "Now tell all the people of Israel just to meet me at Mount Carmel. Also bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 the prophets of the goddess Asherah, who get their support from Queen Jezebel." Y'all will learn about her later, man. She was a thug. Let me tell you. You will hear about her next week from Maria. Because we secretly think that she's in a mafia or that she leads it.
Yep.
And her father and mother ended over there, so they're like the head mafia leaders. No. And so Ahab called all of the Israelites and those prophets of just Mount Carmel. And Elijah came to all the people and said, you must decide what you are going to do. How long will you keep jumping from one side to the other? If the Lord is the true God, follow him. But if Baal is, then follow him. And the people said nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so Elijah said, I am the only prophet of the Lord here. Elijah was saying, hey, I'm the only one here who believes in God. I'm the only one here who pays him attention. But there are 450 prophets of Baal. There are 450 of them. And so Elijah says this, let me show y'all something. He says, so bring us 2 bulls. Let the prophets of Baal have 1 bull. Let them kill it, cut it into pieces, and then put the meat on the wood. Now, this is starting to sound tasty, man. I'm sounding like a good steak. Man, I'm hungry. But don't start the fire. What? You're going to cut up this fine meat, but don't cook it? And I will do the same with the other bull, and I will not start the fire either. And so the prophets of Baal, and then he told them to pray to your God, and I will pray to the Lord. So Elijah is challenging them. Elijah has challenged them. He says, hey, your God is not real, but y'all are about to find out in a second. So let's just both build our own places. They built it exactly the same. He even let them choose the best bull. And he says, here, y'all do that over there, and I will wait and just watch. Whoever sends fire from the sky first wins. That was the challenge. Isn't that strange? Right? Whoever sends fire from the sky, the reason why he did this, because Baal was the sky god. He was the god of the sky, of lightnings and storm. And so they did. So the prophets, they took the bull that was given to them and prepared it. They started just to pray. They started to pray, and they prayed until noon. And they said, Baal, please answer us. But there was no sound. No one answered. Then they began jumping around at the altar that they had built. So they started out, and just a nice, lovely prayer. Father Baal, we your servants are just, if you could, you don't have to, but we need you to, because this is embarrassing. If you could just kind of send fire from the sky, and it's a small thing. Just if you kind of just send fire and light this thing on fire, then we wouldn't ask you for anything else, right? And so they are asking this Baal, but then they realized that Baal was not responding, and so they started getting more, enthusiastic. Okay, Baal, I mean, brother to brother here, I don't know what you are, have cow, have whatever. Here, help us, please. We are getting a little bit desperate, and then Baal is not doing anything, and so they was like, how about let's jump around. Let's throw on some music and jump around. And hopefully Baal will hear us and see us, but still nothing. They did this to the point where they started cutting themselves as an act of worship. They were desperate. And at noon, Elijah began to make fun of them. Elijah's watching them run in circles and stab themselves and rolling around on the ground, and Elijah is making fun of them. And he said, if Baal really is God, maybe you should pray louder. Like louder, louder. Maybe he is busy. Maybe your God is busy. I don't know. Maybe he's at Target with no cell signal. Y'all should just be patient, right? Maybe he is thinking about something else. Like maybe he's at like Pizza Hut eating pizza and he's not worrying about y'all. Maybe he stepped out for a moment, or he could be sleeping. And so Elijah is taunting him. And then we go over to the next verse. I know this is a lot of verses, but we are walking through this book of First King. And it says, so the prophets prayed louder, and they cut themselves with swords and spears. As an act of worship, they cut themselves until they were bleeding all over. And the afternoon passed, but the fire still had not started. The prophets were out of control and continued just to act this way until time came for the evening sacrifice. But nothing happened. There was no answer from Baal. There was no sound. There was nothing. No one was listening. And then Elijah says, may I have your attention, please? This is what maybe God is saying to us. After we have done all these things that does not work, that does not bring you satisfaction, that does not bring you enough attention, that does not earn you attention, God is like, hey, may I have your attention, please? Look over here. Look over here. And watch this. I think a lot of us are out here just trying things. What we know about our human nature is we will go to any extent for attention. We will go to any extent for attention. Guess what? God will too. And so God is like, hey, may I have your attention, please? And then Elijah said to all the people, come here. So they gathered around Elijah and the Lord's altar that had been torn down. And so Elijah repaired it. Listen to this. There was an altar that was God, and Elijah repaired it first. A lot of us are asking for attention. A lot of us want something from God. A lot of us want healing. A lot of us want blessings, but we ourselves haven't made an altar for it. Like we have not said, hey God, if I can just get healing, maybe your first step, maybe your way of making an altar is going just to therapy. Maybe your way of making an altar is making a budget for yourself. But a lot of us are just asking God just to send something from heaven without us being prepared for it. And Elijah is making himself prepared because he knows that this will happen. And so, at about the time for the afternoon sacrifice, the Lord, Elijah approached the altar and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I ask you now to prove that you are the God of Israel. And this was intentional because Israel, all of Israel, was serving Baal. But he says, hey God, prove to them that you are actually the God of Israel and that I am your servant. Show these people that it was you who commanded me to do all these things. And the Lord answered, and he said, Lord, answer my prayer. show these people that you, Lord, are God, and that you are the one who is bringing them back to you. And then he did not have to dance around. He did not have to stab themselves with spears. He did not have to roll around on the ground, although sometimes it takes that, I get it. But then fire came down from the Lord and burnt the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the ground. And all of the people saw this happen, and they bowed down immediately. What a strange way. What a strange way of God to get their attention. What a very strange way that he would send fire from heaven. And it had to be this way because it had just to be impossible for a human being to do that. God had to show that he was God. God had to show you that your attention should be his. God desires our attention, and he will go to any lengths. And I'm just incredibly thankful that in this story, that his way of grabbing their attention was something magical. The fire didn't land on them. It landed on the altar. And so then Elijah said, and then Elijah was also thug. And so after this fire lands, he grabs the 450 Baal prophets and cut their heads off. He says, y'all are fake. Then he captured them and killed them. And it was gross and gruesome. This is important for next week, y'all. This is important. That little aspect. Hear me. That God was gracious in getting the people's attention. I think that some of us think that God is a tyrant, right? And we have seen ways that God grabs people's attention. And sometimes it's not pretty, but it's always grace-filled. Amen. God getting your attention is sometimes not pretty, but it's always, hear me, always grace-filled. That grace just looks differently this time. That grace just looks differently. Grace may look different when God is trying just to get your attention. God wants our attention. In this story, he goes to great lengths for our attention. So much so that he spews fire from the sky. And the people immediately turn to him and follow him. So much so that they got rid of all of the evidence of the other God. Because he is worth it. Not simply because he wants it, but because it is in your best interest. Because after God actually gets their attention, then Elijah asks God just to make it rain. And it rains soon after. A 3-year drought. And then rain comes. After God gets your attention, then he will give something to you. God wants your attention because he has the best thing for you. Hear me. That is it. God wants your attention because he has the best thing for you. And it's always grace-filled. No matter how gruesome it may look, no matter how painful it may feel, no matter how exposed you may feel, it's always grace-filled. Grace just looks differently right now. God is playing the long game. We often play the short one. And what area in your life is blocking you from giving God the attention that he deserves? And what area in your life is blocking you from giving God the attention that he deserves? And in what ways is he trying just to get your attention? And I often ask this. I often tell God, if you need my attention, be kind to me. Be kind. And the way that you do it, that is an ask. But he will. And the fact that you are asking that means that you are already turning your heart to him. And so, I want to leave you with this shared challenge here. In what way is God trying just to get your attention? In what way is God trying to get your attention? And what has it right now? And so, for the next few minutes, this is what I want us to do. At UCity, if this is your first time, we do this thing called a shared challenge. It is shared because we all should do it. A challenge because maybe it may be a little difficult. I love to see those people who like skirt out the room in this moment, you know. Church is not for talking. This one is. So, what I would like you just to do for the next few minutes is think about this here. In what way is God trying just to get your attention?